All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, we are live in full effect right here, right now. We got a legendary pioneer right here live on the line. We got Mr. Mixx of the legendary 2 Live crew. How are you doing this evening?
Yep, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I'm here. I'm living. I'm on this side of life, not on the other side. I'm here.
I gotta say, first and foremost, man, it is an absolute honor just to be able to welcome you on my radio station, man. Like, I grew up on the 2 Live crew. Realistically, my parents didn't like it. Every time I played that song, We Want Some Pussy, they took away the album and I went and bought it again. So, but it's, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right?
Right. No, I got you. I understand. I mean, we definitely did some stuff that a lot of people thought was way out the way, and then they also thought that probably rap music was out the way also. So we wasn't getting no real good recourse with some people at that time.
Oh, most definitely. My parents are wondering how in the heck I kept getting the CDs. But you know what I mean. I never told them my ways, but I kept getting it.
Right.
But I want to take you back, Mr. Mixx, to the very beginning, man, of your illustrious career within the music industry. I have to ask you, like, what actually made you decide to get into the music industry initially?
Well, what happened is I kind of stumbled into it. Basically, I was a fan of early underground hip hop from the late '70s, early '80s when Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and the Sugar Hill Gang. I was a teenager when all that stuff was happening, but it was happening out of New York City. So all you knew about it was what you heard on the records. Back at that time, there was no such thing as hip hop outside of New York City or the tri-state area. So everybody else was like imagining what it was like. There was no movies about it. There was no nothing for like the first few years. So it was definitely a flat out East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Connecticut type situation. Anybody that was outside of those places didn't really know how it went for real. We were really all spectators, not even knowing if we might like rap and might wanted to try to know how to rap, but nobody had any kind of angle of how to do it because it was just in that little sector of the United States. That was it. So, I stumbled onto it by, I was a musician all through elementary and high school. I played saxophone, so I know music. And then when the whole craze of the DJ and stuff started becoming a visual thing, like around 1983, I was stationed in the American Air Force. I was overseas in England. And at that time, Soul Sonic Force, the Rocksteady Crew Breaking Group, and Africa Islam, and they were coming to London to do breakdancing exhibition. So I went to one of these exhibitions, and I always was wondering, once I heard the song Buffalo Gals, I really didn't understand how they was making the record sound the way that they was making it sound. We didn't have an understanding of what a DJ mixer was or anything. So once I actually seen Africa Islam, which was the touring DJ for the Rocksteady Crew, actually doing the scratching on the turntables, I equated it to like a guy that's playing the guitar. One hand is doing one thing and the other hand is doing something else. So my next paycheck, I went and got me 2 little makeshift turntables and started practicing right up in my barracks, right from that point.
And I gotta say as well, it sounds like right from elementary, you knew what you wanted to do with your career, man.
Well, I don't know if it was so much that I knew that I liked music, and playing saxophone was based off of the fact of me seeing saxophone players being on TV shows, playing. Some guys were animated. They bob their heads up and down and to the side and all that. So I would imitate them. So I figured that I wanted to try to play saxophone. But once I got in, in band class, I actually was really good at it. I could actually pull a record out of my dad's collection, take it to my room, and play the record, and then I could figure out all the notes. And within a few days, I would be able to play what it is I was hearing on that record. So it was interesting to me in that, but I never thought it was having a career in music. It was just fun to do. I wasn't thinking about it from a business aspect or anything like that.
And also, as we already know, you are the co-founder of the legendary Two Live Crew. I was wondering, how did yourself and the other members get connected? And of course, what's the story behind that iconic group? Because I believe that in the very beginning there was just two until I believe Luther actually discovered you guys.
Well, basically, what happened is you know, it's you can't make this stuff up. Me and Fresh Kid Ice, and there was another guy named Amazing P. We were all in the military together. When I was stationed in England, I ended up, after my tour was over in England, I came back to California to finish out the rest of my military time. So at that military base in California is where I met Fresh Kid Ice. He was in the military. He worked in the hospital in outpatient records, and I worked in the hospital as a cook in the dining hall. So word was getting around the base that there's this guy that just got to our base that has turntables in his barracks room. so, Fresh Kid Ice, he's from New York. He's from Brooklyn. And he approached me one day in the dining hall and was saying that, I heard you got some turntables in your room. I said, yeah, man, I know how to, DJ and scratch and this, I know this. And then he told me that, he was writing rhymes and doing this and that. So, we stayed in the actually, most of the personnel when you're in the military, depending on where you work at or what job you do, you might stay in the same building. So we stayed in the same building. So he started coming down to my room, and, we would kick it and hang out. Saying he would write up rhymes, and I would be in there practicing, scratching, and playing all of the latest underground hip-hop records that we would hear about. And then one day, I actually, I kind of skipped over something. When I was in England, along with when we went to go see Rock City Crooner and do the exhibition, I actually had my own little pop locking group. Me and three other American dependent kids that were still in high school. I was just one year removed from high school. I was over there when I was 18. So these other guys from the American high school, I hooked up with them and set up a pop locking group with them, and we went in a competition. I don't know if it was nationwide, but I think it was on TV or whatever, and we got second place in it next to this band, and we, second place prize was like $500 worth of, music equipment, and I got my first drum machine based off of that competition. It was a Roland 606, and I learned how to program the machine, and then, the Roland 808 drum machine was way too expensive for a military person's salary. So, and I was reading about it and this, that, and other. And then once I got back stationed to in America, in California, I ran across a 808 drum machine in a pawn shop for $300. So once I got the machine and was able to program the machine the same way that we were hearing the underground records that we were listening to, we had an understanding that, maybe we can try our hand at trying to make some records. We was in the military. We was running across a little bit of money to be able to go and record ourselves in a recording studio, even though none of us had any recording experience. So we actually imitated some of the hip-hop records that we were listening to and made our own little thing, went in the studio, and took the actual master to this one West Coast record company called Macola Records. They were putting out records of Egyptian Lover, the LA Dream Team, Bobby Jimmy and the Critters, which is also the rap personality Russ Parr. We seen the information on the label, and we called down there and told them that we had a record, and the guy said, yeah, bring the record down. We don't know nothing about no contracts, this, and other. They gave us some papers to sign, and we turned our master over to them, and they started pressing the record. So we was just elated that we had like a box of 100 records that we could bring back to the military base and show off. so, so what ended up happening is that the record company was sending the records out with all the other stuff, other releases that they had, and I was getting invoices. My mom didn't live too far from where I ended up getting stationed at, so all the invoices was going to her house. So we would see invoices coming from Miami, St. Louis, this place, that place. We ain't did one stitch of promotion. Don't even know promotion is even part of anything. I'm just getting these things, and they're showing 300 went this place, 400 went another place, 300 went somewhere else, 200 went some other place. They would always show the invoice and what what it was supposed to be for, the money that they were supposed to pay for the record, but we never seen any money. So 3 or 4 months go by, and then everybody that knows, that knows about Luke Skywalker, which is Luke the Campbell, he was a concert promoter in Miami. And he called my mom's house because that was the phone number that was associated to the label of what it is, the records that we put out, and reached out to us and asked us could we come to Miami and do a show for him. I thought he was joking. We didn't know who the hell he was, never heard of him, and especially in those days, people wasn't really traveling around like that, so nobody knew. It could have been, a practical joke or whatever. You just didn't know. But he was willing to send money out for us to get plane tickets to come to Miami and do the show based off of the record that we had out.
I gotta say that's crazy. Like, you don't want me asking as well, because you said you were in you were in the army and whatnot. Like, so obviously, like, how did you actually get out of the whole army thing? Like, to do music? Like, did you just say, "Hey, screw it, I'm gone," or did you have to go through a process to actually initially leave the army to go to Miami?
Well, this is the funniest thing about it. I was 10 days removed of being, you know, getting out. Luke called like 10 days after I had been out of the service. But Fresh Kid Ice was still in. So when we went out there on a weekend. I was already out. Him and the other guy, Amazing V, they're still in the military. You really ain't supposed to leave from the quarters in that way. But we all got our asses on the plane and went out there and did the little show with him. We didn't even negotiate what kind of price we was going to do the show for or nothing. We were just super, 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 super green about how the business went. It was just we were doing it for the love of the situation. And then when Luke gave us a couple of dollars, it was the amount of money that we were making 2 weeks in the military. So, it was just a trip of the way that you can't make this up. You couldn't even think of a script like this.
And also as well, like as you said, like that show you got like more money than what you did in the military and whatnot. But you guys also went on to do phenomenal things early on in your guys' career. And one of them is actually like being able to work with the legendary Ice-T. And I have to ask you, what's the story behind that connection? And of course, what was it like just being in the studio with Ice-T? Because like back in the day, man, he wasn't all Law and Order. He was definitely one of those those one of the gangsters.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about that is that when we were making the records, in the early days when we were still in the military, Ice-T was in California at that time, and the Breaking movie was just coming out, and he would come to some of these different events that this West Coast DJ group called Uncle Jam's Army would do. He would come to some of the events. So we actually met him. Actually, him and Brother Marquise became very good friends, by meeting early on in our careers when we didn't have a career. We was just guys that was hanging out from the military base. And, their word travels around. There's some guy in the military that's doing something, but I didn't have no real platform at that time. But people were still hearing about me. Egyptian Lover and Rodney O. Rodney O used to play keyboards for Egyptian Lover, but he was still in high school. And him and Brother Marquise were schoolmates. So that's how I got introduced to Marquise by the little parties that we used to go to. and hang out and all of that stuff. But Amazing V was still a part of the group at that time. And then when he quit, I had told Mark that if I ever get opportunities to do some work with you, I'm gonna reach out to you. So it was like maybe like 5, 6 months later, Amazing V dropped out of the situation. So I reached out to Marquise, and he was actually living in Rochester, New York at the time, and he actually came back to California. His mom lived out there, and he started coming up to the military base, and we started writing some of the songs like "Two Lives Is What We Are" was written in the barracks. Me, him, Rocky O, and Fresh Kid Ice was doing all of this stuff because we knew that there was a show that was coming up that Luke was bringing us back down to do. So all of the stuff is just like I say, this is before cell phones. This is, this is before anybody could really know what a person was living like or anything. It's just blind ambition and blind lust that we was doing this stuff on.
And especially the promo game as well. What was extraordinary back then, because you had to it wasn't like you put up a flyer on Instagram and put some tags on it. Like you actually had to go around, print off like 1,000 flyers and stick them up everywhere, and you know what I mean. Get a bunch of fines, but you still do it. Like I got to say, those are the days.
Well, the thing is, even when it came to that, most of the stuff was word of mouth. You didn't really have no real intricate way of being able to market or promote any kind of party. But I guess, like in the New York thing, by the subways and, the way that the transportation is, it's easier to move around in a place like New York than it is other places. So the other places, you just had to have a strong network at your high school or a strong network in your neighborhood to have an idea or understanding what was going on or what wasn't going on. Guys couldn't really, you would do like, some billboard flyers and, get you some nails and nail them on the telephone poles and things like that, and hope that somebody might see it and hope that somebody might come to the building that you rented out to do a little party. It was really on some crap too situation. You really was hustling in the blind, risky, literally. So, I look back on those days. I mean, it was like, it was the love of the music and the love of the atmosphere, and people loving to see it and loving to hear it is what made hip hop become what it became. It was just sheer ambition of all people.
And also as well, and I want to say first and foremost, I know you probably answered this question like 1,000,000,000 times in interviews, but I've always wanted to hear it from the legend himself, man. As nasty as they want to be, was actually labeled legally obscene by a federal court. And I was wondering if you can tell our listeners a bit more about that court case, and of course, how does it feel to be the first hip hop group in history to beat this, to fight the system and actually win?
Well, the thing is that it was way too early. They had references to some rock and roll bands. I can't remember the rock and roll bands that they had some issues with, but the reason why our thing got declared obscene, it was declared obscene in the neighboring county. We were in Miami-Dade County, and Broward County is the neighboring county. So evidently, the sheriff up there was having an issue with Luther Campbell just as being a young, aspiring entrepreneur, and he wanted to put a stop to it the same way he was trying to put a stop to the drug dealers and this, that, and other. We kind of got thrown in that same boat because they were kind of thinking that, what we were doing was made with drug money. So when the actual sheriff is the one who filed the suit against us and the company, and when the actual, what they wanted to do is try to get the record banned of anybody being able to sell it in their actual county. It didn't hold any weight in Miami-Dade County, but it held weight in Broward County. So that was the whole thing about, that part of it. We took it serious, but not serious enough to think that a judge would declare our album, legally obscene in a federal courtroom of what this one little county in Florida is almost like spoke for the whole country. But the that album. So that gave them the justification to try to arrest us.
And I gotta say, I did that right. That whole situation sounded like an entire shit show, man. But I gotta say though, man, you guys like held your own, went in there, and you won that shit, man. And honestly, a lot of hip hop artists even today they look up to you guys because you really taught them to never fold, to always stand up for what is right, and you know what I mean. And look, you know what I mean. You guys made history for hip hop.
Yeah, a lot of it was dumb luck too, because we could have. I mean, the record company could have been over it too. I'm gonna share something with you, man, that you'll probably see in a movie years to come. Man, the only reason why, once the arrest happened, they had undercover police officers in the nightclub of us performing and this, that, and other, but nobody had no video cameras. Nobody had the phones like what they do now. You know what I mean? So there was no way to visually record the situation. So they had like old school wiretap cassette players underneath their clothing, but with all of the bass that was going on in the club, the stuff was indecipherable.
I bet you guys were sitting back in the courtroom being like, "Thank God we do Miami bass."
Yeah, man. I mean, the jury couldn't understand what was on the tape.
It's understandable, you know what I mean? Because even when I listen to Two Live Crew in my car, you know what I mean? Even then, like, if you get the bass right up, you can only really hear the bass. That's the whole point, Miami bass, right? So
Right.
at the end of the day, they should have used their head a little bit, you know what I mean? But hey, you know what? Sometimes cops are dumb.
Well, the thing of it is, it just, and this is the crazy part about it. Florida is known for the, hyped up DJ systems. So it's a gang of bass, not that many tweeters. So, the club is almost like when the bass is really hitting the building, it's practically rattling because of the vibrations of the waves in the building. So it's quite obvious you're not going to be able to record anything in an atmosphere like that. It's not like you're going to a Frank Sinatra concert. You know what I mean? So, they were really just trying. They was really trying to screw us on the situation, but it just backfired on them. Thank God that technology ain't like what it is now. If they had a cell phone nowadays, it would have been a wrap.
And also as well, the following album, I actually read that Band in the USA, which is actually Luther Luke Campbell, but featuring Two Live Crew, was actually the first album to actually use the parental advisory warning sticker. I was wondering, what's the story behind that? And of course, were you guys actually upset having to use that sticker, or did it didn't really faze you guys?
No, really. There was a couple of albums that happened. The parental advisory sticker. Let Luke tell it. Is that he created the sticker. He actually created the parental advisory thing based off of the very first album that we did. It didn't have any kind of, we didn't want to label it like it was a comedy album like the Red Fox album or Andrew Dice Clay, restricted from airplay type of thing. We didn't want to put that type of information on it. So by it not having that type of information on it, a mother had bought a kid the album, a 14-year-old kid the album. When she found out what was on it, she went to the PMRC, which is a company that Tipper Gore, which was Al Gore's wife, that was vice president. They decided that there should be some kind of situation to be put on these albums so people can really know what it is that they're buying. So we're the first group to have what they have now is a clean album and an explicit album, because some of the distributors, some of the record stores wouldn't take the explicit version. So we had to just use the clean version for some of the different vendors. So that's where all of this stuff comes from. That comes from us, directly from us. And the parental advisory sticker, we're the first ones to ever use it because of that.
And I gotta ask, was it difficult to actually make a clean version of your music? Because obviously, like Two Live Crew, like you guys are known for your, we don't give a crap what we say, you know what I mean, like explicit lyrics. So was it difficult to actually just like kind of change the words into clean?
It was really easy because it just didn't have as much bite as the original raw versions, and a lot of people don't really understand why Two Live Crew, the formula of Two Live Crew really works. You know what I mean? When you're mixing jokes and partying, it's a volatile mix. So what we were doing is, what I was doing was taking, comedy records from old black comedians, whether it was Richard Pryor or Dolomite or Leroy and Skillet, and would take the phrases that they say on these joke albums and sample them into the beat. And then what Fresh Kid Ice and Brother Marquise would do, they would elaborate on the phrase that I sampled from these comedy records. So, a lot of people didn't really know what we was doing or how we was coming up with the stuff. It was really, with us, it was really for laughs. Not like we're some renegade Pirates of the Caribbean guys that, just came off the boat and we're trying to run through everybody and it's like Sodom and Gomorrah. We were just having fun, basically, but the fun went further than what we thought it was going to go.
But also, taking you to 1994, you actually formed the group Mr. Mixx and the Roughneck Posse. I was wondering, what's the story behind that group for our listeners that don't know? And of course, like, how did you meet the other members as well?
Well, the thing was with the Roughneck Posse stuff, that's when the group had split up. I was dissatisfied with how some of the businesses was being handled with the company, so I had left and was doing other things with rappers that were aspiring to be able to do things, and I had the equipment and the setup to be able to record them. It was just the thing about it was so early in the rap game, and you don't really have a true understanding of why your stuff is marketable in the way that it is, or it sells through, and then some other stuff that you do doesn't sell through. We were so one situation could be a great situation of your stuff being marketed and distributed, and if you try to do it with some other people or do it under a different moniker, it just doesn't go anywhere. So, I had to learn those lessons as an entrepreneur and as a businessman the hard way. When we are a cohesive group, us being unified and together, we moved strongly. But once everybody started splintering off, trying to do their little things, some of the stuff was okay, but it was never like how our thing was as a unit.
And I also remember as well when you guys actually dropped One Monkey Don't Stop No Show, man. I remember that song, Your Hose Is My Hose. I gotta say, that joint was always my favorite off that record.
Those guys, and this is the thing, those guys, from Birmingham, Alabama, before Outkast came out, those guys, I mean, it was just like I say, if you, how can I put this? Outkast was being marketed and promoted by L.A. Reid and Babyface. If those guys that I had on those records was being marketed by L.A. Reid and Babyface, they would be household names right now. So, but the element of you being able to be heard the way that L.A. Reid and Babyface and stuff was able to be heard was night and day. You know what I mean? But guys were very competitive. I know that Big Boy and Andre 3000 are very grateful for the scenario, what it is that happened to them, because L.A. Reid and Babyface and them were from, they were handling all their business out of Los Angeles, and they relocated to Atlanta. They brought their offices to Atlanta. So there's so many different metamorphoses of why hip-hop is the way that it is by the movements of a few different people, especially the southern aspects of hip-hop. Certain things didn't happen, the southern hip-hop would still kind of be in the woods, you know what I mean? Because even with Ludacris, he came through Def Jam South. You know what I mean? The New York Connection and T.I., all of these different guys that ended up showing up, they were, being marketed by big record companies that during the time that we were out, they wasn't really thinking about putting no stuff out on us unless they were able to get the distribution rights. So some guys like, Big Daddy and Trina and them, they did okay, this, that, and the other, but it was never to the extent of what a Two Live Crew situation was at the time that we did it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's so many years that went by that a lot of people don't even realize that there really was a beginning with rap music. People feel like nowadays rap has just been here. There ain't no beginning. It's almost, they look at it like, when was the beginning of life? That's how they might look at rap music now.
And also, as well, you actually teamed up with Billy Vidal to actually release several Miami-based compilations from 95 through 97. And I was wondering, what sparked that partnership? And of course, what was it like just being in the studio with Billy?
Yeah, well, Billy was a radio jock in San Francisco. And like I say, at the time of the split up of the group, I relocated to the Oakland, San Francisco, Oakland area. My wife at the time was from that area. So I moved out there to try to, work on things. And I met Billy. He was, like I say, he was a big radio jock on the radio out there. So we started, doing some things with each other. And at the time, Priority Records had this little division of allowing certain records, like little compilation records to be put out. And Billy had a connect with the people, so we put some projects together for them. And like I said, we're good friends to this very day. With Bill, he was, he wasn't necessarily a beat producer, but he had so much of an element with some of the big clubs in San Francisco. He could take the records in there and play the records and blow them up from the standpoint that most DJs couldn't do that because he was playing at all of the big spots out there. So, you meet some, just like how I'm talking with you and meeting you, that's how, I met a lot of these different people that I did this work with. It's extreme happenstance, most of it.
And I gotta ask as well, like, how did those compilations actually do out in California? Because obviously around 95, 96, 97 criteria, like, there was, like, Death Row Records, there was, Eazy-E type, like, you know what I mean? Like, the real gangster rap. So how did, like, Miami bass actually do on the West Coast?
Well, I mean, it's always been viewed as, like, dance or party music. So the Latino community, the Asian community, they really mess with our music in California. California, outside of maybe Florida, was our biggest market of where we sold a lot of records. So, and the funny thing about it, guys like NWA and them, kind of, took our recipe and put it in their own way. You know what I mean? You can hear some of the comedy records that we used on our records in their records. Once one person gets an understanding of, how Kentucky Fried Chicken is being made, they're going to make their own type of Kentucky Fried Chicken, That's basically what was happening back then.
And also, as well, in 98, you actually released your very first solo record, actually titled The Sex Files. I have to ask you, what made you decide to actually go entirely solo, like away from, of course, Two Live Crew and the Roughneck Posse? And I gotta ask, is that album still circulating around the internet today to be purchased or streamed?
Right. Well, the thing is that we were having, like how, well, I know you're Canadian, but in America, they have World War I and they have World War II, but the world wars would last for like 4 years. So the wars that guys have once they split up is like, it's always on some BS. You could never get the peace treaty done. So most of these solo projects was based on the fact that, me and Luther Campbell and the other guys were like kind of lightweight having a Mexican standoff with each other. So they were just done out of urgency of being able to make music, not because I was really excited about doing a solo project, you know what I mean? So, and then some other people could say that, okay, well, screw that group, I'm going to do what it is that I do, this, that, and other. I always wanted the group to be cohesive with each other moving forward, but we were such, individualists and I guess lightweight opportunists to each other that we could never get in a real huddle and do something that would have benefited everybody. You know what I mean? Everybody was extremely selfish. I guess that's the best way to say it.
And also, jumping ahead to current times, I also read as well that you were actually currently Afro Man's tour DJ. I was wondering, how did you guys actually get connected? And do you guys have any shows coming up? Of course, COVID-19 permitting, because I do know some states are allowing shows, and some states are completely closed down.
Right. Yeah, we met at a concert that he was on. There's a big DJ in Los Angeles named Big Boy. He had a radio show called Big Boy's Neighborhood. He still has it to this day. And he invited me out to the show. And right at that time, Afro Man, Because I Got High song was very big on the charts. So he was on the annual show that station, Power 106, would do back then, called the Powerhouse. I was actually there getting radio drops for like mixtapes and things like that from all of the artists that was at the event. And when I met him to get a radio drop from him, he told me, man, he was a big fan of Two Live Crew, and I was his favorite DJ, and this, that, and the third. And I went backstage and talked with him for maybe about 30, 40 minutes. 2 days later, the road manager hits me up and says, hey, man, Afro wants you to come out and DJ for his band. I'm telling you, this is stuff you just can't make this stuff up. These are the types of things that's always happened to me.
I gotta say though, it sounds like the right place at the right time, and at the end of the day, you know what I mean? He said you were his favorite DJ and he grew up listening to you, man, so right then and there he was probably like, you know what? Let's get Mr. Mixx on the turntables, man. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. I mean, but you don't go into it thinking, when people say that, they're a fan of your music, okay, that's flattering, or you respect it, this, that, and the other, but you don't think that you're about to be able to take advantage of the situation that he liked it to where you'll be out on the road with him. So, just like I say, this game, I will say to people, even in 2021, it's still about availability and opportunity. If you have a particular worth to someone, try to, make the best out of the situation that you possibly can. It can't just be about you because there's a whole bunch of yous in the world. You have to, pick your spots of how you do and deal with people and this, that, and the other. Because a lot of stuff with me, it wasn't because I knew what the hell I was doing. A lot of it was based off of happenstance and, heat of the moment happenstance.
But I gotta ask you, Mr. Mixx, because I do know you stay steady busy, you know what I mean? I remember you said you were in the studio when we first initially set up the interview and spoke on the phone. But I gotta ask you, what is next for you? Is there any projects that I actually missed? Anything else you still want to talk about or promote? Well, we still have you here live on the Canadian airwaves.
Well, the thing is that I'm really, the funny thing about Two Live Crew, nobody really gets any individual credit. So it's hard for a lot of people to find me and follow me as an individual. So I will say this, my moniker at Two Live Mixx on Instagram is where I'm doing all of my stuff. I got this little beats and breaks thing that I'm going to be doing on Instagram. Mostly when most people DJ on Instagram, they get shut down because they're playing a lot of hit music from a particular era or whatever, and Warner Brothers and this company and that company, they be shutting them down. But a lot of the stuff that I'll be playing is like obscure records that's not really, it's in the system, but it ain't in the system enough to where they'll, do cease and desist on the situations. So I got that, and then there's also a project that I'm working on with a longtime friend of mine named Felix Sama. We got a project called Mixx Sama Invasion, where we'll be, it's almost like a CNC music factory situation where you got two producers that's producing rappers and singers. So right now, since there's so many rappers and so many singers, we're just like picking plums off the tree, basically getting raw, untapped talent and bringing it to next level atmosphere. That's what it is that I'm working on right now. Mixx Sama Invasion. But everybody can connect with me at 2Live Mixx, and all of the stuff that I got going on is derived from that page. I don't do Twitter that much. You know, my main thing is Instagram.
And I gotta say as well, a lot of people are really into the Instagram, man. You know what I mean? Me personally, I got it all because I have to promote the station, but I mainly stay on Instagram myself. I find it's a really established and well put together platform.
Yeah, yeah. For all intended purposes, if you get any kind of inkling going on with you, Instagram probably is the reason. I'm not a person that's a chatterbox person, so I'm not really on Twitter. I guess those are, Twitter is for the debaters, but Instagram is for, people that want to either see something funny or see something sexy. It's like Instagram is like a real walking visual billboard. You know what I mean? And it's just like what you say. It's a great platform, to be able to get some kind of exposure. But it's so many people that's on it. You're kind of just running into things. You can't really. I guess you could search for underground hip hop. You could search for, surfers that do hip hop. But it's kind of hard to find, a particular thing. I think most of the stuff you will just stumble upon. You know what I mean? But that's what makes the platform great. You can run across something that you was never even looking for, and it can be something that ends up changing your life as far as your, musical taste and all of that. So I think it's a great platform.
But I gotta say first and foremost, Mixx, before we part ways, man, I just gotta say thank you for years of amazing music, man. You most definitely made a positive impact on my life and millions upon millions of individuals worldwide, man. So I just want to give you your flowers, man, while we have you here on the airwaves, and just say thank you for just making amazing music to help all of us through good times and most definitely difficult times in our lives.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely appreciated. I mean, it's just really funny that hip hop, out of all of the genres, guys don't really look out for each other. It's almost like every man for himself. Oh, well, I can't swim that good. Oh, too bad. I hope you got a life preserver. It's kind of like that. So you become a good swimmer, or you're going to get ate up by a shark, or you're going to drown, or, you got to learn how to swim. So, I guess all is fair in love and war, I guess. But that's just the nature of the beast. So you're always, especially when you have an understanding that you know how to do something well, you're going to keep chomping at the bit until you can't chomp at it no more. You know what I mean? And I've always had that kind of tenacity, for sure.
But I gotta say, Mr. Mixx, thank you so much, man, for just taking a little bit of your time out of your busy evening to come on to 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM and be able to chop it up with myself and our listeners this evening. It was an honor and most definitely a privilege, and I just hope down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just hit me up, man. The same way you hit me up before, hit me again. We can do this. No problem.
Hey, most definitely. I'll wait for the new project that you guys are working on to come out, and then we'll actually set something up to kind of get you back on to help promote that project.
Yep, no problem. I appreciate you, my man. Thank you very much.
You are most certainly welcome, Mixx. Have yourself a wonderful night.
You too. Thank you.